What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Now, hover over the dislike button. I gotta get this disclaimer out there. In this video, I'm gonna say some things that are perhaps unfavorable. I might talk about your favorite fighter, but this is gonna be all real, and I'm gonna use examples to kind of cite my sources. A lot of you guys get on the internet and you say this, that, and the third, but you don't support your claims. You'll just say XYZ is gay, and that's it. It's just drop it. He's gay. Or this is this fighter. This is their problem. They suck. They're bummed. They're overrated. In this video, I'm going to support my claims. And I want to break it down for you guys. Some of you guys that may not know the boxing business a little bit more. Again, I'm going to cite some examples that you guys might be able to resonate with. And we'll just take it from there. Now, the title speaks for itself. Boxing is a business. They don't give a fuck about you. And it's true. The first thing I would have to say is it's the fans' fault. Now, you guys might be thinking, like, Ego, what do you mean? How's it my fault? What the fuck did I do? You don't take a stand. Oftentimes, when you get big corporations or businesses or whatnot, you have to really put your foot down or boycott some shit to be heard. And it's just the way of the world. With boxing, we are so dedicated to the sport to the point where we don't even stand our ground. You know what I mean? The Mayweather and Pacquiao fight should have been happened, truth be told. The amount of people from casual to diehard fans that were involved in talking about that fight, debating. It was on ESPN First Take, and they don't even really deal with boxing unless it's like a real high profile type fight. I mean, this was big business, and it didn't happen. Yet, anytime I make a video talking about the subject, people always talk about it. Other people who have channels, people always talk about it. And for that reason, the boxing and the business politics will always continue because the business realizes that the fans are still going to be there. And I'm not trying to get all political and public enemy and shit on y'all. I'm just being real. And that's one thing. That's one problem. And I'm part of the problem, just like most of you are part of the problem. I like the sport of boxing, and it's just like we deal with it. But compared to a relationship, let's say there's a girl and her boyfriend's cheating, and then she found a used condom and a phone number, and she's like, oh, he's cheating on me. And you break up for a week, and then you get right back with him. Do you think he really learned his lesson? Probably not. So when he cheats the second time, the third time, the fourth time, fifth time, it just becomes routine. And if he's getting away with it, then he's going to keep doing it. And unfortunately, that's how this society works. Most people, it has to be brought to their attention before they know they're doing wrong, or they have to really have learned their lesson before they make a change. And that's one of the issues. The other issue is kind of like the casual fans. The casual fans buy into, and they can't even tell when they're being brainwashed. So there's a lot of fights that are on the books already that should not be fucking happening at all. Like, they just shouldn't be. They shouldn't be existing. Yet they are happening. And that's for different reasons. Like Juan Manuel Marquez versus Mike Alvarado. Not a bad fight stylistically. I have no problems with the fight stylistically. However, you could argue that might be acceptable because they're both coming off of losses. However, you're also stating that the winner of that fight gets the winner of Pacquiao Bradley, because Top Rank, just like Golden Boy, just like HBO, just like Showtime, they try to keep everything in-house. So Top Rank has a less deep stable in those divisions, so they're making the most exciting matches and recycling matches based on what they have available to them. But the guy that beat Mike Alvarado, he just kind of disappeared somewhere in the background. Now, he was willing to fight Pacquiao. At first he said he wasn't, then he said he was. Now he's just somewhere floating off in space. I haven't heard anything about Ruslan Provodnikov as far as an upcoming opponent. Because guess what? Although he's a good fighter and probably one of the best brawlers in the game right now, and has that devastating power, he's must-see TV, it doesn't fit into their business plan to make that. So Top Rank, they want to fight Pacquiao or Bradley against the winner of Mike Alvarado versus Marquez, because all of those players have probably a bigger fan base in the States than Ruslan Provodnikov has. So if you match Ruslan with Pacquiao, then that potentially, if Ruslan was somehow able to defeat Pacquiao just because he has that relentless style and that crazy power, then that would shit on at least two potential matches, Timothy Bradley and then a Marquez rematch. If like he got knocked out, because he might retire if Ruslan knocked him out or something like that. If Ruslan fought Marquez, then again he plays too much of a spoiler. And if he defeats Marquez and gets knocked out, then who's going to want to see the Pacquiao and Marquez rematch or the Marquez and Bradley rematch if he gets knocked out and stretched for the first time in his career? You know what I mean? So for that reason, Ruslan is outcasted. Then you got guys like Carl Froch and George Groves. George Groves was in a great fight with Carl Froch, and he had the better first half. Carl Froch obviously won the fight and had the stoppage, but it was in a controversial fashion. George Groves gained a lot of supporters and fans that day. And had it not been for George Groves pleading and like contesting and forcing a rematch, and the IBF finally gave him a rematch, that fight wasn't going to happen most likely. It looked like Carl Froch was saying, oh, I could deal with the rematch possibly later, but I'm going to fight Chavez Jr. So had it not been for Groves pushing the issue, who knows if Carl Froch would have actually taken the rematch as his next fight. Even though it's a big money-making fight. You guys see what kind of 60,000 tickets an hour, and they're in the Wembley Stadium and all kinds of shit. And that's the crazy thing about boxing. And a lot of people, and I'm a Carl Froch fan, but real is real. Carl Froch didn't want to take that fight as his first choice. He was like, oh, I did my job and I already stopped him. But you didn't really do it in an impressive, dominant fashion. That's why people crave for this rematch. That's why it's one of the best fights on the books in 2014. And it almost didn't happen. Then you got a guy like Andre Ward, who on a lot of people's lists, he's pound for pound number 2. Pound for pound number 2. And between an injury and legal matters, he's been out of the limelight. A lot of people say, oh, he has a boring style or whatnot. And now they're trying to pursue Triple G versus Chavez Jr. because that's a good fight and it's must-see entertainment. So Andre Ward has the potential to really school both of them, truth be told. But he doesn't have the fan base that Chavez Jr. has. He doesn't have the cult following that Triple G has. You know what I'm saying? In terms of people who crave, just like casual fans who crave that devastating punching power and that, you know what I mean? It's just easy on the eyes. You could just watch it. You don't have to be a boxing purist. You can watch Triple G just rip someone's head off, you know what I mean? On some Mortal Kombat shit. So for different reasons, their push is for that. You know what I mean? Instead of Andre Ward fighting a Chavez Jr. who we already called out, they don't want to go that route because Chavez Jr. has his father's namesake. And if Andre Ward schools him like Sergio Martinez did, then that kind of drops Chavez Jr.'s stock. Then you have Adonis Stevenson and Sergey Kovalev. Great fight. Sergey Kovalev and Stevenson, they needed to happen. It should happen. Now it looks like it's lost somewhere in space because Stevenson hopped ship. Now he's with HBO, or he left HBO and he's with Showtime. That's a great fight that needs to happen. Now we got to deal with these other matches, and it just makes it so hard for a champion, the real champion, to be realized when the belts are split. You know what I mean? There's at least a couple guys who I would really want to see, like let's say Danny Garcia and Brandon Rios. I would love to see that fight. Ruslan Provodnikov and Danny Garcia. I would love to see that fight. Kareem Mayfield and Danny Garcia. I would love to see that fight. Thomas Delorme and somebody over there. You know what I mean? These are all good fights, but based on Top Rank and Golden Boy not working together, who knows? We probably won't get to see him. So this boxing as a business bullshit is really, really detrimental. And it's not even just from Top Rank to Golden Boy. It's Golden Boy and Golden Boy. It's Top Rank and Top Rank. There's bullshit on both sides. Golden Boy is picking a person like Keith Thurman who's trying to call out everybody. Don't duck me, Thun. Don't duck me, Thun. He called out Paulie Malignaggi. He's hungry. He has an exciting style. He has a marketable look. Like, you know what I mean? He's clean cut with braids. It's not like he's a fucking pimple faced creeper. You know what I mean? And he's disposing of guys. Yet they're not making the proper, in my opinion, the proper push to get him groomed for that championship fight. You know what I mean? They're putting him in against Julio Diaz, who literally, I have nothing against. I actually like Julio Diaz and I like Joel Diaz, but I'm a fair critic. Julio Diaz literally has a very little chance to beat Keith Thurman. He's a fighter who looked much better in a lower weight division. It's just like a Humberto Soto versus Lucas Matisse when they fought. Humberto Soto is a guy who is a solid fighter. He's a solid name. If you watch boxing, you might know his name. You'll be like, oh, Humberto Soto, he's a good fighter. But you got to keep in mind, some people are better fighters in the lower divisions. And as they move up and as they get older and shop worn and been through wars and stuff, they're not the same fighter. You know what I mean? There's tons of guys like that. Vic Darchinyan's another fighter who, in the lower weight divisions, a lot of people couldn't deal with his power. But as he started fighting bigger guys in the higher weight divisions, they could deal with his power, and they had something of their own. So it made him less effective in the higher weight divisions. Julio Diaz falls in that same. Humberto Soto, Jorge Arce, Vic Darchinyan, he falls in that same category. Someone around who's probably stuck around boxing a little bit too long. He's a solid fighter. He has a solid name in the sport, a respectable name. He has some credible opponents that he's faced, whether he won or lost. But him and Julio Diaz and Keith Thurman, that's a mismatch all the way. Keith Thurman is a true welterweight. He's not a guy from the lightweight division. Like, to my knowledge, when Keith Thurman first burst on the scene, it wasn't anything lower than 147. This motherfucker went up to 154 and fought Carlos Quintana, who has the ability to be very stealthy, crafty, and slippery, and he knocked him out. So obviously his power can transition even to the 154. I mean, I don't know if he wants to just get in there and permanently fight at 54 without like letting his body like fill into that division, but he's at least done it. He went up, couldn't get any fights and couldn't get any action at 147, moved up to 54, fought Carlos Quintana and stopped him. And that's a tricky fighter, you know what I mean? So him fighting Julio Diaz, who is someone who's past it. I don't care if he gave Amir Khan problems. They fought at a catchweight, and Amir Khan was coming from 140. So that could have been a close fight. You know what I mean? Amir Khan wanted to fight as close to 140 as possible because he was fighting at the division. He fought Julio Diaz, if I'm not mistaken, at a catchweight of 143 or 144. So it's still closer to a lower division. Now he's fighting Keith Thurman, unless my sources are wrong, at 147. He's not a true welterweight, and he's going up against one of the top punchers at welterweight, either him or Maidana, who cracks harder than Maidana and Keith Thurman at 47. You know what I'm saying? It's a mismatch, any way you slice it, and Golden Boy realizes that. But guess what? Julio Diaz, not a household name. Keith Thurman, they can always just keep putting him in like kind of bullshit fights until they're ready, until these other guys fight. There has to be a better opponent that was available than Julio Diaz. You know what I'm saying? I want to see someone who's going to challenge Keith Thurman. And realistically, this is how guys like never get to come into their own, because they overlook or underestimate an opponent because they're being guided so softly. You know what I mean? And then they get caught up. Now their whole career's down the drain. You know what I mean? Because Keith Thurman lost to someone who was a journeyman or who was considered old or shop worn. And that's bullshit. Keith Thurman is hot right now. He's getting guys out of there in a destructive fashion, yet he's not getting the fights. In the last 2 years, I could think of countless fights where the loser got the big money fight instead of the winner. Danny Garcia fought Mauricio Herrera, and good thing he did, because Mauricio Herrera exposed some vulnerabilities. However, Mauricio Herrera lost to Kareem Mayfield. Mayfield confronted Danny Garcia and called him out in person, and they made no push to make the Mayfield-Garcia fight. Now Mayfield lost to Delorme, so it's easy for Danny Garcia to brush that fight off and be like, oh, it don't matter. But Danny Garcia and Kareem Mayfield, despite how he looked against Delorme, is still a good fight because Delorme is Delorme. Danny Swift Garcia is Danny Swift Garcia. They have two different styles. Delorme is a guy coming from welterweight who dropped down to 140 after a tough loss against Abregu, and he's very sharp. He's tall. He's rangy. Danny Garcia is not the tallest person at 140, and he has a totally different style. I would say Danny Garcia is much slower than Thomas Delorme and less athletic, but he has his own strengths. Fucking, I could do this all day with the fights. The Mike Alvarado versus Juan Manuel Marquez. Alvarado got beat to a pulp by Ruslan Provodnikov. Ruslan somewhere in the background, like fightless, while Mike Alvarado's getting another chance. And if you really go deeper down Mike Alvarado's resume, he had a very, very tough fight and looked battered at the end of the Brandon Rios fight, which was his fight before Ruslan. And before that, Rios stopped him. Brandon Rios, another fighter. He lost to Alvarado and got the Pacquiao fight. You know what I'm saying? Like, somebody help this make sense for me. Like, it doesn't make sense what the fuck boxing is doing. They're pulling the wool over our eyes, and we accept it. You know what I mean? We accept mismatches like Keith Thurman and Julio Diaz because it's supposed to be the knockout special. And he has a good chance to knock out Julio Diaz or get him stopped or have the corner stop it. You know what I mean? It's bullshit. We have Adrian Broner fighting Carlos Molina. It's like you can't have your cake and eat it too. Golden Boy pumped Adrian Broner, and Adrian Broner pumped himself like, I'm the next Floyd Mayweather and I'm taking over the sport. Nobody really wants to see you fight Carlos Molina. Like, I understand it from a business perspective, but not the way they were selling it. You know what I mean? You sold Broner like he's the next Mayweather. Well, fight Mayweather type of competition. Bounce back strong. You know what I mean? So I'm just getting sick of all the business politics. I was just thinking about this. There's like a lot of people in the fight game who are coming off losses, getting big fights where credible people like Andre Ward or Guillermo Rigondeaux or whoever the person is aren't getting those opportunities. Like Edeslandi Lara, another person. Edeslandi Lara paid his dues. He's fought Paul Williams. He fought a very tough Carlos Molina. Had a close fight. A lot of people gave it to Molina. Some people thought it was a draw. It was scored a draw. Edeslandi Lara's been in there with Angulo. He's been in there against Vanes Matarozen when he was undefeated. Very just tough resume. Now he's fighting Ishe Smith, and instead of Canelo choosing for his comeback fighting Edeslandi Lara, he fought Angulo, a guy that Edeslandi Lara just beat. So I could think of this all day. It's on both sides. We got a lot of just bullshit in the sport of boxing, and I just want to get the sport back pure and have some unifications. You know what I'm saying? Like, why is Adonis Stevenson? Why are we talking about Bernard Hopkins and Adonis Stevenson when there's someone who's closer in age to Adonis Stevenson? They were supposed to fight. They called each other out. They're talking a gang of shit on Twitter. Adonis Stevenson is saying he's scared. Why didn't you fight him first and then like cross over? You know what I'm saying? I understand you got to get your money, but between Mayweather Pacquiao, I think Mayweather Pacquiao was one of the early like points where boxing really started to deteriorate in terms of boxing taking precedence over good matches and fights that need to happen. Nonito Donaire, another person. Nonito Donaire lost to Rigondeaux. You said it was because your shoulder, because your wife was pregnant. She's no longer pregnant. You have a healthy baby. You got shoulder surgery. Yet, I haven't heard anything about a Rigondeaux and Donaire rematch. I would love to see a rematch. So, just boxing politics. I kind of wanted to throw them all out there, give you guys something to think about. Let me know what you guys think of this video. I know it's kind of long, so I'm going to cut it off. Yeah, let me know what you guys think. As always, hate, comment, or subscribe. Till next video, it's Ego signing off.